Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a fun team in the Master League built around Power Up Punch Buzzwool. Now I was noticing many teams double or even triple weak to fighting. I thought about a lot of fighters, but Buzzwool's ability to be a fighter that can boost itself with Power Up Punch and also resist Mud Slap was a bit intriguing to me. I paired it up with a Tapu Lele and a Dialga and went on a 9-2 run back into the 2800s. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's get boosting with Buzzwool in the Master League. Hopping into the first match, leading Tapu Lele into Landorus. This is a negative matchup. Tapu Lele does lose the fight against Landorus, but it's able to soft lose it well enough that Landorus will be neutralized and not be a threat for the backline, which really is not a big fan of this Pokemon. So I'm going to absorb the Sandsear Storm, return fire with the Nature's Madness, and now my opponent is very low. They don't want to take any additional Astonish damage, so they will fire off the Sandsear Storm instantly, but this is going to set up a nice farm down for Dialga. Dialga gets an energy head start, opponent is going to mirror, there's the switch to Buzzwool in the back, there's Kyurem, and this is exactly what we're looking for with Buzzwool. Since the counter nerf, a lot of people just had no idea what Buzzwool's counts are, so I had a lot of people shielding power-up punches, and if you shield the first power-up punch, you're going to be in for a very rough day. Buzzwool is now boosted, and I'm just looking to farm through this entire Kyurem and then start launching power-up punches at the Dialga. Dialga re-enters the field, but unfortunately this is a ramped up Buzzwool. Buzzwool now at +2 and going to be +3 momentarily. I still have a full health Dialga in the back. They're forced to shield power-up punch. Look at the counters go. We snipe with our own Dialga, and that's going to be a game 1 win. We move to game number 2, and this is a good lead for Tapu Lele leading into Palkia. I'm more than happy to stay in here and play this out. They're going to strike first with an Aqua Tail. That's very okay by me. I'm going to let this go, and then go for the Nature's Madness. Opponent catches onto Ho-Oh. That's a nice catch from them, and I'll have to see if they snuck, and unfortunately they did. It didn't display an animation that they snuck, but I could tell from the fact that an Incinerate of damage was applied to the Tapu Lele. They end up shielding the Psyshock due to their lower defense, and now I send in Dialga. Both Dialga and Tapu Lele, they're not the worst into Ho-Oh, so if push comes to shove, that matchup is okay enough. I think that Dialga energy will be valuable here, so I actually invest the final shield as they go for the Sacred Fire. They pivot back into Palkia, and that's a bit of a surprise. I know Iron Head will not knock out, so I go for the Roar of Time. They end up calling it, and they will get KO'd. They have their own Dialga in the back. I get to switch into the Buzzwool, and now my opponent's in a difficult position. Because Buzzwool gets to start ramping up its attack here, people love shielding the power-up punch on 6. People just do not know what Buzzwool's counts are. They assume it's on Superpower Lunge, so if I'm throwing a move, clearly that must be Buzzwool's counts. Here they're going to send in Ho-Oh trying to snipe down, but I make the power-up punch that KOs the Ho-Oh, and now we leave the Dialga with fractional HP remaining. I send in the Tapu Lele knowing they can't farm down. They're forced to fire off an Iron Head, and from here, I can just bring in Dialga, farm them down, and take the win. We're now 2-0 in the set. Tapu Lele into Florges. This is, again, not going to be an amazing lead for Tapu Lele, but the goal is never really to win lead. It's to try and set up farm for either Buzzwool or the Dialga. Moonblast is going to connect. That's some pretty significant damage, and I will return fire with the Nature's Madness. Nature's Madness is going to be no shielded. Florges now very, very low. Nice timing there from my opponent, but by not throwing on alignment, they did take an additional Astonish of damage, and that means that Dialga is going to get a nice farm down. They're going to send in Necrozma Duskmane, and this is a Pokemon that Buzzwool can do okay against, but it's definitely not the best matchup ever. I'm going to go for a bait here, expecting a shield, and thank goodness I did, because they do end up shielding it. They are going to fire off energy here. I no shield. It's going to be a Dark Pulse, and I switch and get a catch and sneak of the Dark Pulse onto Buzzwool. Buzzwool now going to be up a counter in the back. It's Kyurem White, and let's get ramped up with Buzzwool. So far, both opponents have shielded the first power-up punch. This trainer, however, they realize that that cannot be a superpower, so they are going to let that through. Kyurem is going to fire off a last-second Fusion Flare, but now I should be in the driver's seat. I have a boosted lunge for the Necrozma, and if they shield, I'm going to go for the Roar of Time. Lunge connects, that's just too much damage, and we move to 3-0 in the set. We actually see the same leads again in the next match. Tapu Lele into Florges. Once again, the battle of the fairy types. Florges farming up. They throw on an 8 there, which is a little bit of weird timing. So Moonblast is going to connect, and they do actually get the 10% chance at a Moonblast debuff. That is so unfortunate. Nature's Madness is going to connect. I will make a last second Psyshock, but it's highly likely my opponent is going to shield and go for a farm down. I can't really pivot out, so I'm just going to have to send in Dialga, and Dialga is going to have to absorb a lot of energy. Man, that 10% debuff was really unfortunate. Moonblast is going to connect. Opponent, this is not enough for a second Moonblast. It should just be the Trailblaze, and it is. So Dialga does exit up quite a bit of energy. In comes Rhyperior, and I'm feeling pretty good. We got the Fairy type out of the way. This will do big damage or get the final shield. And now it is Buzzwool time. I no longer feel good as it's a Ho-Oh, and I will immediately concede the match. Hopping into the final match of the set, and it's a pretty okay lead. Tapu Lele into Dialga. Dialga choosing to stay in this matchup. Tapu Lele applying a lot of neutral damage, but a super effective Iron Head would be absolutely devastating for Tapu Lele. Opponent is going to fire off the Iron Head pretty instantaneously, and I am going to commit the shield and just commence the farm. There is a pivot out into Kyurem Black, and I just decided to throw the Nature's Madness instantly here because I need to apply pressure and get the shield before my opponent forces my final shield back. I will no shield here, knowing that I can survive whatever they throw. They full send the Freeze Shock wisely, and now my opponent is going to be forced to throw again. I'm going to try and reverse sweep this with Buzzwool if at all possible. Buzzwool is going to get the farm down of the Kyurem. What do they have in back? And it's a Palkia. That's not what I'm hoping to see. I will just fire off this Power-Up Punch though. Power-Up Punch is going to be no-shielded. These counters are now boosted, but Palkia is such a beast. I'm not going to be able to counter through this. I end up no-shielding. It is going to be the Aqua Tail. I need to get the lunge here. I fall just shy of the lunge. I desperately need them to shield this to have a chance in this game, and they do. Again, people just don't know the counts to Buzzwool post-counter nerf, and that's been helping me quite a bit. Tapu Lele makes the Psyshock. I don't see the catch, and that's good for me. Because this will KO the Palkia, now I just need to withstand the Dragon Breath. In comes Dialga. It's going to be close down to the wire, but the Psyshock is reached. Tapu Lele knocks out Dialga, and we secure a 4-1 set. Moving into set number 2, Tapu Lele into Kyurem. Now, Tapu Lele just straight up loses to both forms of Kyurem in the even shield scenarios. They can actually no-shield a Nature's Madness, which is pretty unfortunate. But the goal of this Tapu Lele is not to be a dominating presence, but rather, it's just to try and set up the backline by having at least some play into every lead that I couldn't counter. Now I am going to send in Dialga. Dialga gets a full farm down. No nuke move for that Kyurem is very, very nice. Now they're going to send out Zacian, but Dialga is so far ahead on energy. I will guarantee that I get to land an Iron Head, and an Iron Head should put it into potential counter farm down range for the Buzzwool. The Iron Head lands. Nice catch by my opponent, predicting that I would under tap there to try and force a CMP tie, but they end up catching on to Dialga, and now it is Buzzwool time. And this is yet another team. So many teams are ABA or even AAA weak to fighting, and Buzzwool really enjoys seeing that, and the opponent will resign the match. Tapu Lele into Kyurem, the same lead back to back. Again, this is a terrible lead for the Tapu Lele, but the goal is always going to be just to try and force an early advantage, and then hopefully Dialga up energy can set up the Buzzwool well enough. So far, the game has played out identically to the first game of this set. The opponent is going to fire off the Fusion Flare, and I'm going to send in Dialga. But now we see a switch. They send in Shadow Rhyperior. Every Shadow Rhyperior baits, so I'm going to be no shielding here. But they full send the Rock Wrecker. Buzzwool, no! Buzzwool gets absolutely rocked, no pun intended. Oh my goodness, every Shadow Rhyperior baits. That is heartbreaking stuff. Buzzwool flexes, but he's on 1 HP, and it's Dialga in the back, and I have lost this game. I have one win con, and that's that my opponent tries to call an Iron Head, and I can land the Roar of Time. Oh my goodness, that is catastrophic. Well, I'm going to play to my win con here. Full send the Roar of Time, then top left, but they no shield, and we win. We win because Kyurem does not get the farm down and does not get a second Fusion Flare. Opponent tried to call an Iron Head. That cost them. I threw the game by no-shielding a Rock Wrecker, and then they let me right back into the game by no-shielding the Roar of Time. We see a very familiar lead, Tapu Lele into Landorus. This time I do want to try something a little bit different, because I know that once the Nature's Madness lands, the Landorus is very low and defense debuffed, so I'm going to try something. I'm going to switch into Dialga and snipe down with the Dragon Breaths, but no, they live with fractional HP. They make a last-second Sandsear Storm, and now they're going to switch into Necrozma Dawn Wings. And the fact that Dawn Wings is their best switch in tells me I have made a huge error and I probably just threw this game, because, unfortunately, that is not a great response to Dialga under typical circumstances. So I think if I just played it out normally, as I have been the previous games, I would have been in a significantly better position. Opponent, they just want to get this move off, so they will throw on alignment. I double shield the Tapu Lele because I need the Ghost plus Psychic type out of the way, so hopefully Buzzwool can do well in the back. In the back, oh, that's not what I was hoping to see. It's going to be Palkia, and I just can't win here. I send in the Buzzwool. Buzzwool farming up, going for the lunge, but unfortunately my opponent is going to outpace here, get the Spatial Rend. There's the switch into that Landorus. And that switch does mean that they were able to undo the Nature's Madness debuff. Lunge lands, and unfortunately, not getting that lunge onto the Palkia when they were -1. That was the game. Even despite the catastrophic error, I still had a chance to win if I was able to get that lunge onto the Palkia before they swapped. Well, we get the exact same lead in the next match, so now we're going to see if we can play it out better. The Sandsear Storm, we're going to go for the Nature's Madness, and we're going to stay in this time because I learned that I can't go for an aggressive snipe down with the Dialga. Landorus very low. Dialga's not going to get a lot of farm here, but with the Landorus out of the way, usually Dialga energy will go very far. They pivot out into a Palkia, and I'm very okay with this. I'm just going to one-shield farm all the way down. And getting Palkia out of the way should hopefully mean that Buzzwool can have a pretty nice matchup in the back, as that's a neutral matchup that Buzzwool does not want to be in. So I'm half HP, but I have a massive amount of energy, and it's their Dialga in the back, and this game is over. We just get to ramp up with Power Up Punch. So many teams running weak to fighting, they end up shielding the first Power Up Punch, and it's just all over. There's no hope for this trainer anymore. They're going to go for the Iron Head. Buzzwool is going to get the full farm down of Dialga. In comes the Landorus, and that's getting punched down as well. Hopping to the next match, Tapu Lele. Oh my goodness, that's a blast from the past. It's a Groudon on my screen. I haven't seen a Groudon in ages, but here it is. Groudon is going to get outpaced here. The Mudshot rework, unfortunately, quite the hindrance for Groudon. Groudons love to bait. This is almost guaranteed a bait, but I chicken out, I shield, and the moment I click shield, I knew it was a misplay, as unfortunately, I get baited. This one is unlikely to be a bait, so I will actually double shield the Tapu Lele, and I'm going to look to overfarm and go for the cheaper Psyshock as I'm looking to pick up the knockout. Psyshock into the Groudon, they're going to let that through, and now I do have switch advantage in this game. What are they going to be sending in here? They're biding their time. How is Palkia their best answer to a Tapu Lele? I don't understand. Either way, Nature's Madness is going to be shielded, and my opponent is going to need to throw energy here. So I have the alignment that I want, which is I am going to have Dialga on the Palkia. They're staying in with the Palkia, trying to make their Spatial Rend, but they do not get there. And I'll never find out what they had in back because they resigned the match. So that was the second 4-1 set, and now we have the 11th and final game that I played with the team. And my goodness, was the Landorus lead out in full effect. Here my opponent tries to CMP tie a Psyshock, which is an extremely confusing play. And since they did actually give me a free Astonish, I can now win the zeros with double Psyshock. They're going to pivot out into a Keldeo, and this could be a bit uncomfortable. I debate here whether I send in Dialga or Buzzwool, but I'm expecting that usually the Landorus leads have something punchable in the back. So I send Dialga into Keldeo, and I'm going to save the Buzzwool because I'm thinking that Buzzwool will have play in the endgame. I'm going to shield up the Sacred Sword, farm up with Dialga, and CMP tie here. I know a resisted Iron Head would not be enough to knock out, as Iron Head is a pretty poor move, so I will full send the Spatial Rend. In comes Landorus. Landorus is going to not quite get farmed down. They're able to hang on. Sandsear Storm, and now it's the Buzzwool show, but it's Palkia, and I made the wrong call. I should have put Buzzwool onto that Keldeo, and then I would have been in a much better position. But Lunge is going to land, and that's some sizable damage, and there's a switch into the Tapu Lele. I knew at this health range they couldn't farm down, so they were going to have to throw, which is what they did. They end up undercharging an Aqua Tail, which is a very nice play to get extra farm, but I'm just going to try and punch through everything with Buzzwool, the power-up punch. It's doing too much damage. They can't get the double up that they need, and we're going to take the win. We got the team read wrong, but with a catch and power-up punch, it does not matter, and that's a good game. All in all, I had a ton of fun with this team. I tested out quite a few different variations of Buzzwool teams. The initial idea was Reshiram lead, Tapu Lele as the safe switch, and Buzzwool as the closer. And I've got to say, that team ended up being a real disappointment. I really felt like I had zero real Pokemon on that team, and the switch to putting Tapu Lele on the lead felt so much better because Tapu Lele, while it's pretty mediocre neutrally, that's actually a benefit because it doesn't really have any hard losing matchups, so I never really felt like I had to pivot out of a bad lead. I could just stay in every single lead, try and soft lose it, and go for Dialga farm most of the time. And this plays right into my hands because as long as the Kyurem wasn't on the lead, they're not going to bring in Kyurem into a loaded Dialga, so they save it in the back, and then Buzzwool just ends up punching through it. So by bringing 3 Kyurem checks, it ended up proving to be a pretty viable strategy. Now Buzzwool is definitely more anti-meta than anything, but I think it goes to show that even with 2 anti-meta Pokemon like Tapu Lele and Buzzwool, if you well support them and have a specific top meta target in mind, like in this instance, I'm trying to triple hard counter Kyurem, then Spice can actually work in the Master League. And I feel like the 9-2 record from, I think it was like 2770 up into the upper 2800s is pretty good evidence of that. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.